welcome here to the home of the World Champion and Ferrari's biggest fan, and of course Ferrari's fastest driver, but most importantly, Ferrari's most exciting fan. Oh yeah, what a great start to the 2026 FI Formula One season, I have to say. This has been, and of course we are returning with the very traditional now race reaction to the round one, the Australian Grand Prix, as you can see on the beautiful three-dimensional calendar in the winning Scuderia Red Ferrari colors that will be winning very soon, or of course on the traditional shiny 2D calendar, of course Australian Grand Prix ran at that reprofile superfast Albert Park street circuit, which provided for some fantastic battles, and we will of course talk about the major one of them. We will also talk about what we could have and should have done. Actually, maybe just one thing was missing from really turning what was a disappointing qualifying 4th and 7th place into pretty much a huge victory for us as Scuderia Ferrari. So over here, are you ready to see it? Of course you are! So we will use the Scuderia Red Retina iMac, then show you the overall results, and of course the drivers and the constructors championships, so that we can see over here just how well we've started. It wasn't a perfect start, of course, but in terms of the Grand Prix, how we executed the race, I was really happy about it. I'm sure you also enjoyed my overall race as well over here, which I've done really well in the changeable conditions. Of course, we are playing the 2025 season at the very same time, and given it basically in both races, the real race and my race, it all came down to strategy, not really the driving skills or the car performance. So it is important over here to make sure that every element is put in place, and I have to say the new regulations delivered quite a show, big show, especially the first dozen of laps were one of the best Formula One racing that we've seen. So we greatly enjoyed, obviously, in our new fashion. We couldn't even stop by for a little bit of a bite or a little bit of a drink. We were just glued to the screen, as of course to the 4K 60 screen, the high definition screen, because of course it was that pulsating, and I have to say I'm very happy with how we performed in this race. So where to start? So as you do know, obviously, the cars, arrived in Melbourne. Thankfully, everybody was able, to make it safely down under. And of course, very quickly, it was apparent once the practice session started, that probably Mercedes-Benz would have a bit of an advantage. But I think, we looked pretty good. But of course, McLaren and Red Bull were in the mix. So the regulations, maybe the only disappointment would be that it created kind of the 3-tire Formula One. So you now have pretty much, us with the Mercedes-Benz slotting it out, right? Then McLaren and Red Bull quite a gap, which is great to see. As I was predicting, this could be, that only season for McLaren where they could be winning championships, and Red Bull might not be back based on the evidence of their speed and reliability for a very long time. And hey, Mercedes-Benz from June, they will have to conform to new stricter regulations with regards to the power. And for us as Scuderia Ferrari, I think we nailed everything apart from that strategy, which is sometimes a little bit difficult to get, especially when we were leading the race. Oh yeah, right, yeah, of course. Then the good thing also is that that the second tire is of the F1 is pretty much slower with teams like Haas, Alpine, and of course the Racing Bulls. And then you have pretty much the bag with the Cadillac Hardy finishing the race, Hardy, Aston Martin as well, Williams having their sheer troubles as well. And I think Audi was also surprise package that they made it to that second tire. But overall, that's not what we worry about. We worry about the big titles. And of course as I was aiming for the 4th victory, the Australian Grand Prix victory, to equal Michael Schumacher. That's why we have this wonderful setup. We of course have the golden medal, which is of course for the winning driver. So we will be celebrating with it. We will be playing the beautiful national anthem of Italy if we win the race, and hopefully that will happen very soon. Definitely at the next race, which will be in China, where we won the sprint. And I think in the sprint we will be very strong because there will be no pit stops. So during the practice, kind of the order was established, but we didn't know until qualifying what the true pace was. And the big worry, especially on Saturday late afternoon and obviously heading into the Sunday's race, was the advantage of the Mercedes-Benz, right? So there's obviously a lot to learn, but as Scuderia Ferrari, we did really well on the medium. So I thought we were right up there on the pace with the Mercedes, to challenge them for pole position, because we were just 3 to 5 tenths behind on the medium tire while they were running the soft. So it's kind of of like a similar pace. The difference between the tire compounds is about half a second. But then, you know, once we put on the softs in qualifying 2, I learned that there was some issue with the battery deployment. So nowadays, sort of the computing software is being used so that the battery, which now forms 50% of the overall powertrain, is deployed the way, obviously, you know, in the most efficient way. So basically, it's kind of like the system will learn, kind of like you have that artificial intelligence, right? So for the driver, obviously, you do have a couple of modes. You can adjust the battery deployment, but you know, you sometimes, like Leclerc, for example, pointed out, you never know where you will actually run out of the battery, especially at the end of the straights, right? You can always recharge. You're doing a bit of a lift and coast, so it's actually easier for you to downshift, lift and coast, you know, into the turn, because it's very essential that you have the power, you know, for as much of the lap as possible. So the qualifying was a bit of an anticlimax. I think the first time in qualifying that you didn't see, definitely, I think the first time since the inception of Formula One, since when you didn't see, you know, the driver actually, you know, trying, basically, you know, going full throttle, you know, all throughout the lap, which is very, very unusual. But yeah, when we qualify 4 and 7 and Mercedes-Benz had a gap of over half a second with Russell leading by 0.8 seconds, the Red Bull of Hajar, obviously we were so happy that the Red Bull of Verstappen crashed out. That was a huge concern, frankly speaking, for us. And that was simply, you know, due to the fact that we didn't expect the Red Bulls to be anywhere near the front, but, you know, we just out-qualified the McLarens with Leclerc. Hamilton, you know, was just in the end, so, you know, we kind of had the same pace. So yeah, a lot was basically on the cards, right? So the top 7 cars with Verstappen obviously starting from P20th, because you know, he won't admit it, you know, but me as a 4-time Formula One World Champion, I know that he probably puts the brake bias, you know, in you know, pretty much, you know, too much to the front. So again, you know, it gives you better braking power, but there is the chance that you can look up the rear wheels, which is what happens to me if I run, for example, front brake bias of 55 or less. Like when you're running front brake bias of, let's say, 52, like in a race, definitely do check up the red hot lap setups. You know, it is possible to look up the rears, you know, relatively easily if you just jam on the brakes, which is what he did, and that's why he didn't finish the qualifyings. But you know, overall with Leclerc, Hamilton, it was disappointing in the softs that they didn't perform so well. But you know, we've gotten to the race, you know, beautiful day, maybe not fully, you know, sunny, but again, you know, we were really looking forward to the start of the race. And guess what? You know, the pre-start race procedure was immediately in there, because there was a big, again, you know, a danger that a lot of the teams would simply be unable to get off the line efficiently. Why is that? Just like George Russell, you know, pointed out, he said, basically, I had no battery, you know, for the start of the race, right? So when he had no battery, obviously you go on the reconnaissance lap, right? You know, right when you go out of the pits where Piastri crashed, so we're like, great, you know, one guy out, Piastri, huge mistake right before the start of the race, you know, disappointed, you know, that's the curse for the Australian, you know, Australian Formula One drivers competing in the Australian Grand Prix, never being on the podium is real. I mean, you know, such a silly mistake to make. I mean, obviously he planted it, you know, full throttle, you know, coming out of, you know, what is essentially turn 4, and, you know, got on the curb, spun, you know, and couldn't even make it to the grid. So, you know, one McLaren out, and then on the formation lap, like you could see that only the Ferrari engines, right? So basically that's only Scuderia, Ferrari, Haas and Cadillac were able you know, to generate the enough kind of the power to have a really good solid start like what we were used to. So it's great because it adds another variety. But that pre-start procedure, right, when everybody, you know, tries to rev up the turbo, so the motor generator unit, the kinetic one, basically the MGUK, you know, is able to, that's the battery, right, you know, is really able to give you some power, you know, off the line. You know, that was not really necessary for us, and you know, we were kind of helped by the start, because that was the shortest 5th red light that I've seen. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and immediately off. So you know, it caught quite a few people out of the surprise, and we had just a blistering start. This is exactly how it should be. So we were super happy about it, and exactly as predicted. It didn't look that great at the beginning, but you know, I would say when Leclerc went to 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th gear, and especially Hamilton, who's almost gotten, you know, to the back of Leclerc, that was a very impressive start. So now Charles Leclerc is leading, right? So in this race reaction, like, you know, okay, we've gotten to the lead of the race. Hamilton obviously got bogged down behind Russell. Otherwise, you know, he would have gotten to that 3rd place much quicker. But basically, by the end of, by the middle of the 2nd lap, he was able to recover, you know, the 3 positions. I believe that he lost because, you know, Russell obviously could hardly make it in out of the first chicane, and then it was basically Leclerc, Russell, and Hamilton caught up relatively quickly, because there was this massive fight between George Russell and Charles Leclerc, and we greatly enjoy it, right? Because it was changing the positions and so on, and I think this is great, right? But you have to be tactical, where you also have that overtake mode. So anytime you go, I believe it's the start finish line, and you 1 second, less than 1 second behind the car in front, you can then get the extra boost that only you can use, not the car in front. So this is very important, to understand how that overtaking really works in the rules this season in 2026. So basically, once you're behind, then you have that extra power, so that you are then always able to overtake, and as a result, it's really exciting. We were worried when Russell inevitably overtook Leclerc on lap 3 that he would run away, but that wasn't the case, and this is really great, because obviously this circuit would favor Mercedes-Benz because it's obviously very power intensive now that that the old chicane before turns 9 and 10 is gone. So again, a lot to look forward to, and I thought it was a great battle. I thought by the lap 8, when Leclerc managed to hold on to the lead up until lap, I think, 11, 12, and Hadjar's engine, obviously running in 5th. Also Antonelli, bogged down at the start, so he was able to make it up, back to the 4th place. I thought it was a great tussle, right? Ferrari, Mercedes, and it really looked like we had a similar pace, and I do believe, that qualifying 1 was really a true reflection. We somehow really screw up qualifying 2 and 3, because in qualifying 1, it did look like we are, on the same pace, but what then happened was, because the Red Bull, of course, quite a lot of people, but the reliability was very good, but basically 6 cars didn't make it to the finishing line. We expected more, so there were gonna be safety cars, only virtual safety cars though, and it was critical because once the cars go, right, you lose the battery deployment power. The car basically grounds to the halt within few seconds. So the cars can only pull to the side, but it will always trigger the virtual safety car, and because it was I believe at the end of lap 12, so 58 laps, right? So you go like, okay, 46 laps. Can we go to the hards? Yes, you can. You can see it. For example, when I will be racing, because the tires, they are very durable, so that's great. So what does that mean though, is that of course you're not gonna have so many stops, right? So especially for us, Ferrari, I think fastest through the corners, like Norris said, but also fastest when it comes to the starts. Of course, we are rocket ships there, but also, in terms of the tire management, right? So I thought, okay, you're gonna take that stop even that early, right? Unless it's maybe within the first 5 or 7 laps, where it's really too early, even for the hard tire, we should have taken, that gamble, but instead, because Russell was running second, he stopped, Antonelli stopped, right? So both Mercedes cars stopped, but then, it took quite a long time to clear Hadjar's car. So under the virtual safety car conditions, everybody's going around the same speed, so it would be only about the pit stop. So we kind of don't understand why we haven't pitted, on the following lap. The mechanics were out, but kind of decided to go back, and then I think was the mistake, just like I made in the race, where I waited one more lap, to switch from the full wets to the intermediates, lost 2 positions, and that's exactly what happened to Leclerc, who found himself 3rd, Hamilton dropped to 4th, and we were all of a sudden kind of banking on the second virtual safety car, which came, suddenly we were obviously like running up front, but the Mercedes would be closing in on the fresh rubber, and when the second virtual safety car came in, it was courtesy of Bottas's Cadillac that broke down. It was important, that we stopped at that time, because that would give us again the chance to at least, we would have fallen behind, both Benz cars with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, so we would be 2nd and 4th, because I don't believe Antonelli would be able to get ahead of Leclerc, but we would be just a couple of seconds behind, slightly fresher rubber, so you could make up the 3 to 5 seconds. I believe definitely in a race stream it was possible, but because the pit lane entry was closed, pretty much immediately, because that's where Bottas stopped. I mean, come on, he couldn't have stopped at a better place, so we really didn't have that option. And then, we stuck to the original plan, but it was now obviously slower, because you get over 10-second advantage during the virtual safety car, right? Because everybody's going at, I believe, 40% of the racing speed, and that really made all the difference, because if you look back, we were pretty much, doing the same pace, Mercedes and Ferrari, so it was like 6 seconds, Russell to Antonelli, another 6, 7, to Leclerc, and then to Hamilton. So, what can you say? That's really the time lost in the pits, and it's a real pity, tricky because it was a fantastic battle, but then it was obviously a bit of an anticlimax, you know, because a bit more of a strategic race, but you know, the hard tire is like that very often, you know, when it just wears by 1 or 2%, and basically on the 5 and 25 you can do almost the same pace, which is why, for example, you know, the hard tire doesn't have that ultimate grip, I would say, so that's also problematic because you cannot just set some super fast lap times like 1 or 2 seconds, you know, faster, but obviously it's very durable, so yeah, bit unlucky, but definitely strategic errors both in real life and also, you know, when I was doing the racing, that's obviously on me. But here, you know, I wonder, Hamilton questioned it, and we gotta be perfect, especially if we want to beat Mercedes-Benz in the first 3 months of the season. So yeah, but overall, I mean, we are very encouraged. You know, this was fantastic race. I believe we are the real people's winners, and you know, I cannot wait for the remaining 23 races, especially if we will always be coming out of the first turn, you know, on the podium positions and in the lead of the race, and that's exactly what we need, you know, because I believe, you know, that no team has the ability, you know, to run away, especially if it's not Mercedes up front. So fantastic job, well done Scuderia Ferrari. Hopefully we can sort out the qualifying, because if we manage to beat Mercedes in qualifying, that's even bigger lead, right? You could see Hamilton starting from 7th, 4th row. It's really difficult, you know, to make it 1-2 into some short run-up like in Australia. So here is how the race finished. So we will take a look at it in our beautiful Scarlet Red Retina iMac over here. So I hope you can see it nice and clear. And so over here we can see George Russell winning for Mercedes, and only 3 seconds between him and Antonelli. So yeah, obviously congratulations to George. You know, he's you know, driving really well, but you know, Antonelli managed to get it back and actually managed to keep up, which is a bit of a surprise. So definitely a bit of an improvement from still, you know, one of the few teenage drivers, you know, on the grid. And again, you know, if he would have won the World Championship this year, which I think he's the favorite number 4, I think Leclerc is first, Russell maybe Hamilton second. You know, it was a great race actually by him. Russell third, Antonelli fourth. He would be the youngest champion, but let's hope that doesn't happen. Charles Leclerc then 15 seconds behind, so you can see losing over 10 seconds, you know, under the virtual safety car really hurt Charles. And you know, Hamilton was right on his tail at the end. So Lewis obviously always stopped a little bit later, so he had a bit of a tire advantage. But the fact that he was able to claw back 5 seconds, you know, in a race trim, you know, over about 30 laps, you know, that's a great result, because Lewis obviously was a bit struggling, you know, last season being, you know, 10, 20, 30 seconds behind usually at the end of the race. And you know, this is great, and obviously we will see, will it be his last season? Will he be the 8-time champion? I believe Charles Leclerc over here is the favorite, but Leclerc did say that they didn't have the best setup while Hamilton was feeling great. And you know, yeah, but again, with the right star strategy, you know, this could have been, you know, easily the other way around. 5th, Lando Norris, and you can see this is what I've been talking about, these huge differences. Norris 50 seconds behind, and Max Verstappen 6th place. Of course, he was able to make it relatively quickly into where you would expect him, but he was unable to overtake Norris. They were not even overtaking like Russell and Leclerc. So yeah, it's great to see them there. Frankly speaking, the 2 latest champions of Formula One. 7, Oliver Behrman, Haas Ferrari, benefited from the starts, but great executed race for 6th place. 8, Arvid Lindbergh at one point even running 3rd and didn't let Verstappen go when he attacked him. 4 points for 8th place. You know, a very great job by the rookie, you know, obviously only 18 years old. 9, Gabriel Bortoletto, 2 points, so very solid start for Audi, even though Hülkenberg didn't even get to start the race because they had an issue, and Pierre Gasly then made it for Alpine. We did Mercedes power to the 10th place for 1 point. Verstappen set the fastest lap, but he was the only one, I believe, you know, out of the first, out of the top 6, you know, who did a 2 stops. So of course he had the advantage there. So yeah, George Russell is the winner over here, and this is what it means for the driver's table. So let's take a look at it over here. So it reloaded for us, what a pity, but we are right up over here. So in our 2026 Formula One season, we have the drivers leading George Russell, leading the Drivers' Championship, Andrea Kimi Antonelli second with 18 points, and Charles Leclerc third on 15 points. So you can see, you know, great, the real Ferrari color for the overalls. And again, I think this will be a great battle, and with the sprint, obviously more opportunities to catch Mercedes-Benz. I think we will definitely do it, and next weekend already. For Lewis Hamilton, for Ferrari, 12 points, so very solid start, and we definitely, you know, should have had a double podium, at least, if not a victory here. Fifth, Lando Norris McLaren, 10 points, so 6 Max Verstappen Red Bull Racing, 8 points. And over here is that second tire of Formula One, so 7 Oliver Berman has 6 points. Then 8 Arvid Lindbergh Racing Bulls 4 points, 9 is then Gabriel Bortolato Audi 2 points, 10th Pierre Gasly Alpine 1 point, and then we have the other then of course the other drivers didn't get the points again on the Formula One official website. It's a pity they don't have, you know, the big drivers with the points like we had at the beginning of last season and throughout that Olympic 2020-24 season. But what can we do? We have to show it to you like this way. So at the moment 11 is Esteban Ocon for Haas 0 points, 12 Alexander Albon Williams 0 points, 13 Liam Lawson Racing Bull 0 points, who got almost collected by Franco Colapinto, who is 14 for Alpine at 0 points because he backed down at the start, right? So, you know, it can be a bit more dangerous, especially at the starts when some car simply, you know, gets very, very poorly off the line. 15 Carlos Sainz Williams 0 points, and 16 Sergio Perez, well done to Cadillac for being the last finisher on 0 points. 17 Isaac Hadjar Racing Red Bulls unlucky with 0 points. 18 Oscar Piastri McLaren 0 points. That's a huge loss. That's why the crowd wasn't really pleased, because their home hero didn't even get to start the race. 19 Nico Hülkenberg Audi 0 points, didn't start. 20th Fernando Alonso Aston Martin 0 points, and 21st is then Valtteri Bottas Cadillac 0 points. It's interesting that these drivers, you know, when you are DNF, that you actually ahead of, for example, you know, Alonso and Bottas, who actually you know, ran for longer. But you know, this is the official website, even though I believe the order here at the back is a bit incorrect. And 22nd should be Lance Stroll. He's not classified now because he's a bad boy and daddy pays for his draft. But yeah, I believe, you know, there was a brief of procedure, so he's not classified. I think the reason is because you know, they broke the rules. You know, basically Aston Martins always, you know, would go in, stay in for 10 laps, then go in just, you know, to test the car. But here, for the 2026-2026 Formula One season, the Constructors Championship. So, Mercedes got the full haul of points with 43 points. Scuderia Ferrari, we are on 27 points over here. So, yeah, basically, with the sprint and with a better showing, especially, you know, during the Grand Prix in Shanghai, we will be able to overtake Mercedes and McLaren. Obviously, they were so dominant, but only third place, 10 points. Kind of seems like they're already out of it, being 1 minute behind, you know, and using the same Mercedes engines, which they cannot extract the best power of. Then we have a fourth, Red Bull Racing, 8 points. Then we have fifth, Haas, 6 points. And then sixth, Racing Bulls, 4 points. 7, Audi, 2 points. 8, Alpine, 1 point. So a lot of teams scored the points, and then 9 is Williams with 0 points. Cadillac is 10, 0 points. Aston Martin, 11 position, 0 points. So yeah, very, very exciting start to the season, and it's definitely going to be the, you know, between us and the Mercedes, kind of like, you know, what you've seen from the 2017 season. So we are really looking forward to it. Okay, you can see over here, you know, how it looks like, and I have to say it's just a pity, obviously, that you know, we didn't really claim the victory. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the race over here. It was so much fun, I have to say. And you know, we are definitely looking forward, you know, to many, many more. What a pity we couldn't celebrate. You know, I think it's definitely clear, you know, that the new regulations have made for a brilliant racing, kind of like in 2022, the 2022 season, right? You know, where there's a lot of overtaking, and I think it's really, really exciting. And I have to say, you know, I was really happy with the Grand Prix. We gotta fix, you know, the qualifying and the strategy, and that's it. So, over here, I hope you guys enjoy it. Definitely, we are very excited. And we will be, let me also know how you like the new fashion and the new haircut with regards to my race. You know, what a pity, right? I've only finished second, you know, that I wasn't able to start with the victory. But yeah, basically also made a poor strategy call. You know, we were running, obviously, in very, very terrible wet conditions. So I went from the full wets to the intermediates, and intermediates could last the whole race. So you didn't even have, you know, that variety of trying more pit stops, which I think would be better for the overall spectacle. You know, like this way, obviously, yeah, if there's any safety car or the virtual safety car, that can play a big role, and that is going to be, because obviously the cars are new, so they break down more than, for example, in the future, where usually everybody finish and reliability was top notch. So we will see. again, you know what happens, but yeah, I have to say, you know, my driving was impeccable. You know, I was leading the race, and you know, only lost it due to the poor strategy. You know, also gotta fix a few of the technical difficulties, as we said, you know, with the racing wheel. But overall, yeah, this was a very good solid start to the season, as I'm aiming to become the 5-star Formula One World Champion. And it's only Michael Schumacher still over here with 4 Formula One Grand Prix victories down under in Melbourne. And what a great season opener it was. This was Jan, the Smiling Sun champion, telling you everything in this exclusive race reaction. Let me know what you think about the new regulations, the new season. It's so exciting, right? Of course it is. So let's say goodbye to the SF1000T in-1.8 Formula One Racing Simulator, our beautiful innovative 3D calendar and Scuderia Red Retina iMac, as well as you know, our old calendar and all of these trophies. We will be back very shortly. Everybody, enjoy the rest of the first proper March weekend, and we will see you very soon, as there's a lot of racing in March. We cannot wait for it. We love racing. We love Formula One. We love Ferrari. Forza Ferrari!